Try to get my imp to jump out of this bitch.
What's that name? Dreams.
That's what I called it. Head's going again. I don't have a double jump either. Labels and ownership, collision labels, audio. Don't have a lot of options here. Detected player ownership. Watch Loud Night, Kevin Silver Dreams. Watch Loud Night, Kevin Silver Dreams. I'm gonna turn that down, I don't need that.
Wait, what? I had it to where couldn't hear any voices.
That's fine, I just turned it down. Alright, so are you watching mine?
No, I didn't get the notification.
Probably because you don't have the bell.
I have it on.
Really?
Yeah.
Let me check if I'm broadcasting. Skip it.
Yeah, I don't see nothing.
My channel. Yeah, it says AIMbOt live broadcast.
The only one I see is April 9th. Conan, my man.
Corner, my man. Are you on Twitch?
Mm-hmm.
You say yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, go to YouTube.
Oh.
Yeah, I did to YouTube.
Alright. Alright. I'm plugging my phone. There we go. Okay.
What is that? Oh, what is this first one? Save position. Oh, you see what I'm talking about?
Okay. Okay, just go ahead and delete them. Delete them all over, and then just so open up your menu, and instead of doing that one, keep scrolling to the 6th one, and do that one.
Blank Puppet Deluxe.
Or 7th, yeah.
Oh, wow. Now, why is that? Okay, whoa. Okay, but my question is, that means you can clearly add this stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how did they add it?
Talking about the jump and all
Yeah, I mean, clearly it's like a tool or something, right?
that. Yeah, I don't know, but all I know is that it's right there, easy, visible, so that's what I'll do.
I'm gonna just use him then. Wow. Run speed, turn speed, jump height, minimum height, because the hold X, double jump height. Oh, this one's third person. He runs fucking weird.
Yeah.
You seen this guy? Oh, killed him. I don't know what it means by foot separation. Oh, that doesn't make sense. His foot separation doesn't really do much. Control how far apart your puppet's feet are. They don't really do shit. Bicycle feet. Oh my god, you hear that shit?
What? Crying?
Yes, bro.
Who is it?
Fucking Mojo. T-Rex tread.
Oh my god.
Huh.
This just sounded violent, bro. Crash!
You look at I don't really notice the difference. I don't get it. What?
What the hell?
Why is your fucking character a midget?
Yo.
Why he look like he driving a bike?
I don't know what I did.
Wow, there's a lot of shit here I don't really understand. It's crazy.
I'm telling you, man. If you don't get something, just go to tutorial. I got it.
Yeah, I mean, there's shit in here I don't get.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Where's the actual physical properties? Hey, yo, I'm about to kill him.
Who is it?
Fucking Mojo, because they went on a walk. I guess he wanted to get with.
Oh man.
Isn't there a hue circle? Physical properties. Friction, bounce, squishiness, density. Isn't there one where you can just change the size? I'm just gonna scale for now. How big is that? Oh, I broke his head. Emitter.
Now you know how to grab, rotate, and scale objects. It's time I showed you how to clone things. Cuthbert has managed to get himself stuck again. Luckily, I've set up this scene so that we can use the clone tool to rescue him. With this tool, you can make exact copies of anything in the scene. This makes it one of the most useful tools in a Dreamshaper's toolbox. You'll also get a chance to practice with all the other tools that you've learned so far. If we get Connie off this platform, maybe she'll help us out. Let's use the clone tool on this one small block to create a bridge. Remember how we used the L1 button to modify how the grab cam and the left stick work? Well, it can also change how the grab button works. Hover over the floating block with your imp and hold L1. Now grab the block with R2, and remember that if you press it gently, you can move it more slowly. Now you have another block. That's because grabbing things while holding L... Now grab the block with... Well, it can also change how the grab button works. Hover over the floating block with your imp and hold L1. Now grab the block with R2. And remember that if you press it gently, you can move it more slowly. Now you have another block. That's because grabbing things while holding L1 creates a clone of that object. Once you've created the clone, you can release L1, but don't let go of R2 until you're ready to place it in the scene. When you've found the right spot, release R2 to put it down. You can treat a cloned object just like you would any other element. You can move it with R2 and rotate it with L2. And scale it up and down with the directional buttons.
Oh my god.
Of course, anything you do to the block can be undone with the left directional button. You can even clone the cloned block. Let's do that next. Hover over it, hold L1, then press and hold R2. You can use the clone tool to build a bridge between the first two platforms. Or you can create floating blocks for Connie to jump on. All that matters is that she can get to the next platform, so make sure you test your work in play mode. When Connie can get across, go back to edit mode, rewind time with L3, and move on to the next step.
I'll rotate the other way. There we go. Rotating with the touchpad is really hard.
Getting Connie to that third platform looks easy enough. There's half a bridge between them, so we can just clone this block to finish it off. Okay, hold L1 and grab the block with R2 to clone it. Let go of L1 to stop cloning, then place the clone by releasing R2 to complete the bridge. That doesn't look quite right. Might need to try something different here. Why don't we rotate the clone? Hold L2 over it, then push the right stick sideways. Well, it's better. but now they don't match. We should probably undo everything with the left directional button and start again. This time, we'll make the arches match up by flipping the clone. Here's how you flip objects. First, hover over the arch and hold L1. Then gently grab the arch with R2 to create a clone. Remember, release L1 once you've made the clone. You have to release it or the next part won't work. Here comes the cool bit. While still holding the arch, click the L3 button on your controller to flip the arch horizontally. That's all there is to it. Now you try. Hold L1 and grab the arch with R2 to clone it. Release L1 and flip the arch horizontally by clicking L3. And don't forget, you can realign the clone while you're holding it by pressing the triangle button. Now, let's see what happens if you click R3. Nice! The arch is flipped vertically instead. We should probably line it up with the first arch now, and release R2 to place it down. Ah! We probably should have flipped it back first. No problem. Just grab it with R2 and flip it again with R3. Time to switch over to play mode and see how things are working. If Connie can get across the bridge to the third platform, you're ready to move on. But first return to edit mode and rewind time. Okay, Connie, we've almost made it to the door. Ah, but she needs to go across and up now. Good thing you already know how to make clones because we're gonna need them. So hold L1 and grab the block with R2 to clone it. Now place that clone a little higher than the original. And you know what? There's a better way, so let's undo that with the left directional button.
Wait, what did it say?
We're gonna try a new technique called repeat cloning. I bet you can already guess what it does. That's right, it lets you make lots of clones at once. Let's give it a go. Hover over the block again, hold L1 and press and hold R2. Release L1 once you've made the clone, and move the block up and along. Don't put it down yet though. This is where you become a cloning expert. Without letting go of the first clone, press the right directional button to create a second one. And, you guessed it, another press will create a third one. In fact, you can just keep pressing right to create more and more clones in a sequence. And if you make too many, no problem. Just press the left directional button to remove any clones you don't want. As you can see, all the clones are spaced evenly, and you can move the whole sequence by simply moving the clone that's on your imp. If you move the clone up, you can create a staircase. As always, put it down by releasing R2. Once the clones are in place, they won't be in a sequence anymore. You'll have to edit each block individually. See the dotted line around them? That's a selection. When you put repeat clones down, they're always selected automatically. That means you can move them as a group. If you only want to move one block, you can deselect the group by pressing circle. If you want to find out more, there's a whole tutorial on selecting and grouping objects. Move on to the next step when you're ready.
Okay. Okay. Isn't that nice? Okay. Okay. This these people, man, they're geniuses.
Yeah.
Like, there's no other way to put it, dog.
No.
Like, did you learn this group cloning?
Yes.
That shit is genius. I don't know how that's possible, but they did it.
I know, bro.
And they're like, oh yeah, you know, we made our entire game in our own game engine.
Okay, Connie, we've almost made it to the door. Ah. Let's get back.
Skippity pop. Kept out.
Nice.
Welcome to part 4 of our Start Dreaming tutorials. Ah, I see Cuthbert has managed to get himself in a pickle again. Connie, how do you put up with him? What a spanner. But with Connie's help, we can rescue him. This time around, I'll show you how to select and group your creations and how to scope in and out of groups. Luckily, someone left behind a block for us to use. Remember how to repeat clone blocks to create a bridge? Well, let's do that again. Move your view side on to the block and the gap. Hold L1, then grab the block with R2. Move it with the motion sensor function to create a clone. Just like last time, let go of L1 while still holding R2, then press the directional buttons to make more clones. If you rotate the first block a little before you clone it, you can make an arch. Use L2 to make the first block angle up slightly, then make the clone angle down. Press the left directional button to repeat clone, and the clones will line up to make an arch. Welcome to part 4 of our Start Dreaming tutorials. Ah, I see Cuthbert has managed to get himself in a pickle again. Connie, how do you put up with him? What a spanner. But with Connie's help, we can rescue him. This time around, I'll show you how to select and group your creations and how to scope in and out of groups. Luckily, someone left behind a block for us to use. Remember how to repeat clone blocks to create a bridge? Well, let's do that again. Move your view side on to the block and the gap. Hold L1, then grab the block with R2. Move it with the motion sensor function to create a clone. Just like last time, let go of L1 while still holding R2, then press the directional buttons to make more clones. If you rotate the first block a little before you clone it, you can make an arch. Use L2 to make the first block angle up slightly, then make the clone angle down. Press the left directional button to repeat clone, and the clones will line up to make an arch.
But how did he? Oh, oh, okay, because I'm retarded. Okay. Oh, okay. I got it now. Fuck. Wow. That was cool.
Now, you probably noticed that all the blocks, the original as well as its clones, were selected automatically after cloning. You can tell when things are selected because they have an animated dashed outline. But after we switched between play and edit modes, everything was deselected. So let's select them again. All you have to do is hover your imp over one of the blocks and press X. There's the outline again. Now do the same to the rest until the whole bridge is selected. Can you see how each block has its own outline, with a double line where they meet? That's because they're still individual elements. You can deselect them one at a time with X, but it's much quicker if you deselect them all at once with circle. Give it a try. There's also a faster way of selecting multiple objects. Just select one as before, but this time keep X held down. Now move your imp to select the others. Better than selecting one at a time, right? So much faster. The great thing about having multiple objects selected is that you can manipulate them as if they were one object. For example, if all the blocks are selected,
If you watch these
you can
tutorials, man, you
clone
can
the
tell these
bridge
people play the fuck out
sideways
this
to
game.
create a double bridge.
Oh yeah, big time.
Plenty of room for Connie to cross it without
Oh my
falling on the bridge.
Oh my
Try it in
God,
play
man.
mode. Once Connie is across the gap, go back to edit mode and move on to the next step.
Wow.
You know, this bridge would be really useful to help Connie cross to the next platform. Use X to select all the blocks again. If we're going to use this bridge a lot, we can make it into a group. That way, it will behave like a single element and you won't have to keep selecting all the blocks. Have you noticed the menu at the side of the screen? It appears when you have one or more objects selected. That's the context menu. The options it gives you will depend on the situation you're in. In this case, all the buttons relate to selected objects. Look for the plus sign. That's the icon for the group button. The number next to it tells you how many objects you've selected. You can use this button now to turn all of those blocks into a group. There we go. The bridge is now a single element. You can tell because it has one outline around it instead of one around each block. And if you look over at the context menu, you'll see the group button now says ungroup. Use it if you want to break a group up. but we still need it to help Connie. So let's clone this bridge and place it between the second and third platforms. Just like before, hold L1 and grab the bridge with R2 to clone it. As always, remember to let go of L1. Ah, we don't need to test the bridge to see that it's not going to get Connie to the third platform. But don't worry, we'll fix that in the next step when you're ready to move on. Our bridge needs a bit of work if it's going to reach the next platform. This is the perfect opportunity to learn a new technique, scoping in. Scoping in means you can jump into a group and edit the contents individually without having to ungroup it first. And since you can only edit things inside the group, you don't have to worry about messing up anything outside it. Let's give it a try now. Select the bridge with X if it isn't already selected. Then find the Scope In button near the bottom of the context menu.
Fuck.
Notice that it's
Layer?
showing you a shortcut for it, L1 and X. Notice that it's showing you a shortcut for it, L1 and X. So hover over the bridge group, hold L1 and press X. Now you're scoped in. We can now edit all the parts as if it wasn't a group. If you want to really focus on just the group, you can hide everything else in the scene. Just use the Hide Everything Else button in the context menu. The icon looks like a closed eye. There's also a Scope Out button in the top right corner. This is how you exit groups. Try scoping out now. Select the button with X or use the shortcut, L1 and circle. That's it. Now scope back in again so we can fix the bridge. Just hover over it, hold L1 and press X. I think what Connie needs to reach the next platform is a staircase. So use the Move and Clone tools to create a new one. Once you've built the staircase, test it out in play mode to make sure Connie can make it across. When you're happy with it, switch back to edit mode, rewind time, and move on to the final step of this tutorial.
Wow.
Is your staircase working? Fantastic. Now Connie just needs a bit more help to save poor old Cuthbert from his predicament. Luckily, you
He
can
said
clone your
predicament.
staircase group to reach the final platform. Use the clone shortcut, L1 and R2, to copy the staircase group to the last platform. Don't forget to let go of L1 once the clone has been created. That's how useful groups are. If you select the group, you'll see a button in the context menu that saves the group as a new element. Saving a group as a new element means you can use it in other scenes or share it in the Dreamiverse. You can't do that in tutorials, but you can everywhere else. Now that you've mastered selecting and grouping, I'll leave you with a thought to ponder. You can also make a group inside a group. With that, I'll let you experiment. Once you're happy that you've mastered selecting, grouping, and scoping, you have just one thing left to do. Go into play mode and take Connie and Cuthbert to the
This
exit.
thing, bro, it is just like the game editor. You can have a group inside of a group, bro. That is just like a hierarchy thing without having an actual hierarchy. And having parents and children. Because all that grouping, a group inside of a group, is just parents and children. Wow. They just do it different. Wow. They didn't say, let's make a game. They said, let's make a game editor.
Yep. Exactly.
That's crazy. Leveled up. Level 3. I'm doing all these tutorials. I feel like it's going to give me the wrong answer. I want it to be logic or whatever that's considered. But since I'm doing all these things.
No. Do the first ones.
Oh, you're cutting.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so you said do the first ones. I finished Start Dreaming. Should I do the motion controllers one?
No, it's the same thing, just with motion controls.
Okay, so I should do, there's a logic tutorial. Oh man.
Yeah, after that, that's when I started doing like things I want, which was logic and art.
You did the art tutorial. Creation tutorials. Not really a whole lot of, oh, all tutorials. Connectors and physics. Wiring and logic. Oh my. Yeah, we're going into the logic. On the first one is wiring and logic. Lit.
In this tutorial,
You did the whole thing, the wiring?
you're going to learn all about the exciting world of logic. Pay no attention to Cuthbert.
No, not that.
It's not as complicated as it sounds. I promise.
You're cutting.
Let's check out the scene.
I said I did it.
See the buttons on the platforms in front of
You
our
did
good
the what
friend
one?
Connie?
Different
They
one?
activate the bridges that will
Not
take
wiring?
you to the next platform. At least that's what
No,
they're
because I already
supposed
knew how to
do.
do that one.
To get them working, you'll need to connect them to the gadgets that control them. You can't see gadgets when you're in play mode, but they let you do all sorts of useful things in edit mode. You can tell gadgets apart by their color and icons. Green gadgets are sensors and inputs. This one is what we call a trigger zone. It's one of the more versatile gadgets. It can trigger other gadgets when it detects something in the scene. Like in this case, Connie standing on the button. Hi, Connie. If you select the gadget with X, you'll be able to see its detection zone. That's it, right there above the button. Press the circle button to deselect the trigger zone, and let's look at the next gadget. Red gadgets are movers and outputs, meaning they make things happen in the scene. This particular gadget is a rotator, and it's connected to the first bridge. Click R3 to start time, and let's see what it does. Well, not a lot right now by the looks of it. That's because the rotator is switched off. You can tell because the gadget is dim at the moment. But if we connect these two gadgets together, we can turn the rotator on using the trigger zone. In the next step, I'll show you how.
Can't you change that?
Before we start connecting things, make sure you can see both gadgets. You'll notice they have ports sticking out of their sides. Ports on the left are inputs, and the ones on the right are outputs. Hover over the output port on the trigger zone now. You'll see the word detected appear. That means that when the trigger zone detects something, this output will send a signal. Before it can send that signal to the rotator though, we'll need to connect them with a wire. So hover over the detected output and press R2 or X. You'll notice your imp is now tethered to the port by a wire. Power ports have appeared on the gadgets too. It's these ports that switch gadgets on or off. Okay, drag the wire over to the red rotator gadget. Now hover over the power port at the bottom, then press R2 or X. Once the gadgets are connected, the wire will disappear automatically. That way, your scene won't get cluttered. After all, you don't want wires all over the place. You can see the wire again by hovering over either gadget. Okay, time to test our connection out. So let's switch over to play mode in the options menu. That's more like it. Now the trigger zone detects Connie when she stands on the button and activates the rotator on the bridge. As soon as she steps off, the rotator stops working. You can use the button to get the bridge lined up with the platform. Once Connie can make it to the second platform, you can head back to edit mode and move on to the next step. Now that we've connected the rotator, let's take a look at the second platform. See the white gadget on its side? This gadget isn't a sensor or an output. It's called a microchip. Microchips are used to organize logic in scenes. You can think of them as boxes of gadgets and wires. Let's have a look inside. Hover over this one with your imp. Hold L1 and press X. It's just like scoping into a group of objects. This window is the microchip's canvas. And if these gadgets look familiar, it's because they're two rotators. Each one controls half of this jointed drawbridge. Try to connect the output from the trigger zone to the power ports on the rotators. You can create multiple wires from the same output. Or you can clone wires in the scene by holding L1, then grabbing them with R2. Clone the wire near the rotator to create a new wire from the trigger zone. Once you've connected the trigger zone to the second rotator, switch over to play mode and make sure it's all working. Okay, jumping on the button now will activate the trigger zone and raise the drawbridge so that you can cross over the... Oh, wait a minute. The bridge has dropped down before Connie could cross. That's because the signal to the rotator stopped sending as soon as Connie stepped off the trigger zone. Switch back to edit mode and
switch back to edit mode.
L3. In the next step, I'll show you how to make signals stay on.
Okay, sound like you need a goddamn nap.
If we want the bridge to stay up, we'll need to add a gadget between the trigger zone and the rotator to keep it activated. We can do this with a counter. So let's go into the assembly menu. Press square to open it if it's closed. Select the gadgets menu with X. You'll find the counter in the logic and processing section. The gadgets in this menu take an input signal and change it in some way before sending it on. Go ahead and select the counter. its icon is a tally counter. Now you can see the gadget on your imp. Hover over the microchip and it will snap to the canvas. Press R2 or X to stamp the counter onto the microchip, then press circle to unequip it. The counter gadget counts up or down whenever it receives a signal through its inputs. By default, it starts its count at 0 and has a target of 1. Once it reaches that target, it sends a constant signal through its counter-full output port. Before we connect it though, let's tidy up the wires connecting the trigger zone to the rotators. Just hover over them and press triangle to delete them. Now press R2 or X over the detected output of the trigger zone to create a new wire. Connect it to the increase count input port on the counter. That's the port with the plus sign icon. Now when the trigger zone is activated, the counter will go up to 1. And, this is the important part, it will stay at 1 even after the trigger zone deactivates. Now hover over the counter-full output port of the counter. This port sends a signal when the counter reaches its target. Create a wire with R2 or X and connect it to one of the rotator's power ports. Then do the same for the other one. Time to switch to play mode and try out our new connections. When you're happy everything's working as it should, return to edit mode and move on to the next step.
I'm so stupid. I tried to move ahead of him and I fucked it up. God damn it. God damn it, stupid bitch. I got this stupid motherfucker crying, bro.
Just one more bridge for Connie to cross. As you can see, we have another microchip on the platform. So let's open it up. Hover over it with your imp, hold L1 and press X. Okay, looks like we have everything we need here. But Connie's an adventurer, so how about we make this last bridge more challenging? Adding a timer to the logic should get the adrenaline going. Once Connie activates the button, she'll only have a few seconds to cross before the bridge drops back down. Let's head back to the assembly menu. If it isn't already open, press square. Then go into the gadgets section. You'll find the timer in the same place as the counter, the logic and processing. Its button has a clock face on it. Now go ahead and stamp the timer gadget onto the microchip with R2 or X. Then unequip it from your imp with the circle button. Now let's take a closer look at the timer's inputs and outputs. You can see their names by hovering over the ports. The first input is a start timer port. Once this receives a signal, it will start the clock. The second one is reset timer, which sets the time back to 0. Over on the output side, we have timer finished and timer output. Timer finished sends a signal when the timer reaches the required number. It's set to 5 seconds by default. Timer output is a little more sophisticated. The signal it sends represents the timer's current progress. If, let's say, it's only halfway to its target, the signal it sends will be half strength. So how do we connect this so
my
the bridge
controller's
only
making
stays
me
up for a
lag.
few seconds? Well, we need the bridge to be raised while the timer is running.
Yeah,
So create a wire on the timer output with R2 or X. Remember how we used the counter on the previous platform? We can use one here too. Just like before, connect the wire to the counter's increase count. Then connect the counter full output to the rotator's power port. Time to see if it works. Click R3 to test it out. As you can see, since the timer isn't connected to a trigger yet, the clock starts ticking as soon as we play the scene. The bridge goes up, but doesn't drop down when the timer finishes. That can only mean one thing. There's a problem with the logic. If you'd like to figure it out for yourself, feel free to check the gadgets and see what's wrong. Or move on to the next step and we'll go. So let's take a look at why the bridge stayed up after the timer finished instead of going back down. Remember how we used the counter earlier to remember the signal from the trigger zone? Well, now it's remembering the signal from the timer, so we need to make it forget that once the timer finishes. Let's go over to the counter gadget. Hover over the inputs to see their names. This one here is Reset Count. It'll put the counter back to 0, which will turn off the rotator. So all we need to do is connect it to the timer, but to which output? Aha, there we go. We can use the timer finished output. Hover over it and create a wire with R2 or X. Then stretch the wire over to the counter and connect it to the reset count input. But we also need to reset the timer, otherwise the logic will only work once. So let's get another wire from the timer finished output and connect this one to the reset timer input. You'll recognize it by the rewind symbol on it.
Any more logic?
All we have left to do is to connect the trigger zone to the start timer port so Connie can activate it. Okay, that was a lot of connections. So before we test it out, let's go over the logic we've made. First, Connie activates the trigger zone, which sends a signal to start the timer. Once the clock starts running, the timer output...
I just want to say, if you look, because you know the tutorial is like a little video. If you look, either they're not using a controller and they're using like a mouse, or they got the steadiest hands in the world.
Oh, yeah.
becomes active.
Nah, it was like that in Little Planet
This tells the
2 as
counter
well.
to count up. That then turns on the rotator and raises the bridge. Now this is where the really clever stuff kicks in. After 5 seconds, the timer finishes its count, which activates the timer finished output. This in turn resets the counter to 0, cutting the signal to the rotators and lowering the bridge. And let's not forget, it also resets the timer, so the logic could be triggered again if Connie didn't cross the bridge the first time. Isn't logic exhilarating? Take your time digesting all that. Logic is easier to read if you route your wires neatly. Grab wires with X to change their paths. You can also move the gadgets around by grabbing them with R2. Feel free to test it out in play mode, but don't leave the scene just yet. I have one more thing to show you.
Okay, that's pretty smart.
So, on the third platform, we've set up a timer that makes the bridge drop after 5 seconds. But I think that might be too easy for a seasoned pro like Connie. Let's make it a little bit more challenging. First, if you're in play mode, switch back to edit mode and rewind time with L3. let's move in closer to the microchip with the timer. You can use the grab cam, R1, to move your view. Now I'll show you how to tweak a gadget's settings. Hover over the timer gadget, hold L1 and press square. This tweak menu contains the settings for the timer. Hover over the sliders and buttons to see their names. The top slider sets the target time for the timer. If we lower this setting, the bridge will stay up for...
Oh, what you got? Oh, you're cutting out, baby. Ooh, yeah.
for a shorter time. To adjust the value, hover your imp over the slider, then hold X. Use your imp to drag the slider left or right. Set it to around 3 seconds. It doesn't have to be exact. If you're a stickler for precision, you can adjust the slider incrementally using the up and down directional buttons.
He said if you're a stickler for
Just
precision,
hover your
but
imp
you're
over
talking
the
to him.
slider and press up or down to tweak the
Hayden.
value.
Sir.
In fact,
I'm
why
gonna
don't
go
we
get
make
food real
things
quick.
Yeah, man. No bread.
Yeah. I'll be back.
really interesting for Connie? Let's set it to 2.5 seconds. You can close the tweak menu now by selecting the cross in the top corner with X. Or you could use a shortcut. Just hold L1, then press circle while hovering over the menu to close it quickly. The same shortcut works for closing microchips. Give it a try now. Hold L1, then hover your imp over the microchip and press circle. Time to test out the scene in play mode. If you have any problems crossing that last bridge, you can always tweak the timer again in edit mode. Remember, you just hover over the gadget, hold L1 and press square to open its tweak menu. When you're all set, take Connie to the last platform and walk through the door to complete this tutorial. In this tutorial, you'll use logic to make health go up and go down. Oh, Cuthbert. In this tutorial, you'll use logic to make health go up and go down. Oh, Cuthbert. Let's start by going into play mode. See if you can get Connie across that first gap. Oops. Sorry, Connie. I forgot to fix that. Don't worry though, even after falling such a long way, Connie's just fine. There's only one problem. There's no way for her to get back up. What we need is for Connie to respawn on a platform if she falls. so that's going to be our next job. First, switch back to edit mode. Remember to rewind time with L3 as we always do after play mode. In order to make Connie respawn, we're going to use a health modifier gadget. We'll use it to make the floor around the platforms lethal. Health modifiers can damage or heal anything that has a health manager. And, as luck would have it, Connie has one built into her logic. Go to the assembly menu. Open it with the square button if it's closed. Select the gadgets menu, the one with the 3 connected squares. You'll find the health modifier in the movers and output section, which is represented by a box with an arrow. Now select the button that has a clockwork heart on it. Your imp will now be equipped with a health modifier gadget. Stamp it somewhere central, near the floor, using R2 or X. Then unequip the gadget with circle. Your scene now has a health modifier, but to make it work as intended, we'll have to tweak it first. We'll do that in the next step.
What you got, dog?
Let's go ahead and open the health modifiers tweak menu.
Yeah.
Hover
What you
over
got,
it,
dog?
hold L1 and press square.
Yes.
Huh?
We
Here you
shrimped
can
them.
set the options
a
for
deer
how the
shrimp.
health modifier works.
Oh, that sounds
That
good as fuck.
includes how much health is modified, which is shown in the first slider. Right?
Damn, I want something. What time is it? 7:11. It's getting late. Make a wish. I want $free slushies. No. Oh, then what do I want? What do I want? What do I want? Piece of rose, low key. Wait till my mama come home though. You watched the one about health modifiers, right?
Bing, bing.
You said what? You're cutting more than paper
You win.
on crafts
You
day.
win. God.
God.
Now it's set to -100. This means it will take 100 health points away from anything it affects. Just enough to make Connie respawn. The modifier mode is set to per hit, so 100 health points will be taken away when anything touches it. But since we want the area around the platforms to be lethal, we need to set the modifier type to zone. Select the zone icon with X now, then go to the Zone Properties tab so we can change its size and shape. The icon is at the top of the menu and looks like a box in a zone. Look for the Zone Shape section of the menu, then select the cube. You can use the zone sliders to make the zone bigger. Be careful not to make it too tall. The respawn zone should be level with the pink lines around the platforms. If you need to, move the health modifier gadget nearer to the floor. When you hover over the edges of the zone, you'll see white arrow gizmos appear. Grabbing these with R2 will let you change the size of the zone. Using those, you can make sure the area around the platforms is covered. Now let's test it in play mode and see what happens. Perfect. If Connie falls off now, she'll just respawn back on the platform. Before we move on, maybe we should do something about this booby-trapped bridge. Switch back to edit mode and rewind time with L3. There. See what's causing it? It's that trigger zone. When Connie activates it, the bridge collapses, and there's no way across. If you've finished the first logic tutorial, you'll know that the counter is being used to remember the trigger zone has been activated. If you follow the wires, you'll see there's one connected to each block. These red dots on the blocks are not gadgets. They show that a wire is connected to a setting in the block's tweak menu. Explore the logic for yourself. Or, if you want to move on and get Connie on her way, just delete the trigger zone by pressing triangle over it. That'll prevent any of the logic from activating. Then, once Connie can safely make it to the second platform, move on to the next step. Now's probably a good time to show you how to add checkpoints. When playable characters like Connie activate a checkpoint, the scene remembers their progress. So when they respawn, they'll appear at the last checkpoint instead of starting off at the beginning. Go to the assembly menu, then the gadgets menu. If the last section you used is still open, close it by pressing circle over it.
Oh, word.
Expand the gameplay gear section with X, then select the checkpoint. It's the one that looks like a location marker. There. Now your imp is equipped with a checkpoint gadget. The direction of a checkpoint determines which way a character will face when it respawns. So make sure the front of the gadget, the side with the black outline, is facing the direction you want Connie to face. Remove the gadget from your imp with the circle button, then open the checkpoint's tweak menu. Checkpoints use a detection zone, just like health modifiers. So select the zone size tab from the menu. This is set to a sphere by default, but to make sure it can't be missed, let's change it to a cube. You can use the zone size sliders to make the checkpoint cover the width of the platform. Above the gadget, you'll see a white move gizmo. Grab it with R2 to put the activation zone where you want it. Just make sure Connie can't miss it. The white handle shows the direction Connie will face when she respawns. Check that it's pointing the right way. Grab it with R2 if you need to adjust it. Let's close that tweak menu with L1 and circle. Now try it out in play mode to see if the checkpoint remembers your progress. Sorry, Connie. We're gonna have to respawn you again. But it's all in the name of science, I promise.
Don't really like the tutorial guy anymore.
Great. There she is. Right at the checkpoint again.
Why?
When you're ready,
What do you do?
go back to edit mode. Rewind
to what he
time
says.
and move on to the next. When you're in the name of science, I try it out in play mode to see if the checkpoint remembers your progress. Sorry, Connie. We're gonna have to respawn you again. But it's all in the name of science, I promise.
Hey.
Great.
Boy,
There she is.
you don't just murder
Right at the
Connie.
checkpoint again. When you're ready, go back to edit mode, rewind time, and move on to the next step.
Am I gonna die? Oh, oh, I do die. Oh!
This next bridge looks a bit too hot to walk on. But Connie's a tough explorer, and she's always ready for danger.
This bridge seems too hot to walk on, but Connie's a tough explorer, and she's always ready for danger.
So let's give it a go.
Golly.
Okay, that block's too big for Connie to jump over. Better get her back to safety before it's too late. Let's switch back to edit mode and see how the bridge is damaging Connie. Move closer to the bridge and keep an eye out for any gadgets attached to it. Ah, there's one. A clockwork heart icon, so it's another health modifier. It looks like, instead of using a zone, this one is attached to the bridge. So whenever Connie walks on it, she loses health. If only that block wasn't in the way, she could make it across. But what if the block itself could lose health? We could give it a health manager of its own and see how that works out. Go to the assembly menu, then open the gadgets menu. You may need to close the gameplay gear section if you opened it earlier. Then you can expand the movers and output section. Look for a heart icon, not the clockwork heart this time. Select it with X to give your imp a health manager gadget. Stamp one near the block with R2 or X, then press circle to unequip it from your imp. To make the health manager affect the block, we'll need to attach it. The easiest way to attach gadgets to objects is to use what we call surface snap. Grab the health manager with R2 and hold it over the block. All you have to do to activate surface snap is hold L1 while your imp holds the gadget. This makes it hug the surface of any object you hover over. Now release R2 to attach the gadget to the block. You can also let go of L1 to stop using surface snap. In the next step, I'll show you how to tweak this health manager.
Is your thing done?
Now
No.
Damn. It's looking pretty fire, and I'm not talking about the floor.
Oh shit. Nah, but look, check it out. I'm on a cloud with rocks.
Oh, look, and this shit's animated, bro.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we're off to a good start.
Do we jump here? Another cloud? Right.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta make these jumps. But be careful. There's an asshole. Yay.
You can double jump. Oh! The one disappeared. Did you do that on purpose?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, hell. You're making one of those toughest games in the world.
So you go back to it. Oh, I missed. I should put a checkpoint right there. I'm too tired. Okay. And you jump to this one. So you're thinking like, oh, this motherfucker tricked me. So I know what's coming up. You skip that one? Yay.
You're such an ass, bro. You ever seen there's a video of this guy playing like this 8-bit game and he's speaking Spanish? And it's like one of those games, bro.
Oh yeah, troll games. Yeah, that's what I got so far. I like messing around with the art and logic a lot. As for like the creating and shit, the sculpting, I want to say I'm good at it, like I'm getting there. But bro, what my brother did in the first like 2 hours of him just playing the game, he legit made something fucking awesome. He made like a phase, bro, and it has detail and everything.
Must be nice, bro. God damn.
And yeah, that's why I really told him online comes out. You wanna make me shit? He said, "Fuck yeah." He said, "All right, bet." Bet.
Bro, that should look nice.
Alright, let's see.
This guy, you ever seen this?
Hoy vamos a jugar este juego que le hace un parecido a Mario. Entonces aquí vamos a entrar a
Mario
este nivel y estamos empezando mal, pero no hay pedo porque voy a hallar los truquitos de este juego. Y no mames.
Oh, yes.
Sí.
Yes, yes, yes. I know what you're talking about.
Después, yo pienso
Yeah,
que tengo
yeah.
que irme para atrás. A ver, a ver. No mames, el pinche techo también.
Yeah, bro. I know what game that is. It's a mobile game, right?
Unas pinches águilas.
Yeah, I don't know what game this is.
Yeah, I remember.
I don't know why. So no one's saying what game it is. It just says funny Mexican guy playing a game similar to Super Mario Bros.
Well,
Lo logré.
alright, Hayden. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna eat and I'm going to bed. I'm tired as hell.
Yeah, you should have gone to bed a while ago. I'm gonna finish up this
But
tutorial and I
tomorrow-
might do another one and then we get off.
Bet. Tomorrow, Conan, and then maybe dreams.
Yes, sir.
Or dreams, and then Conan. We'll see.
Yeah, whichever, man. I'll be here.
Bet. Good night.
Good night, sir.